There is a particular kind of loneliness that does not announce itself dramatically. It does not arrive with storms or crises. It settles quietly, like dust, on the surfaces of our everyday lives. It builds in the unspoken spaces between what we mean and what we say, between what we feel and what we allow others to see. Many of us learn, early and subtly, that speaking honestly is risky. We are taught that emotions are delicate explosives, capable of unsettling the equilibrium of our relationships, of threatening the approval we depend on, of creating waves in waters that should remain still. So we learn to become guardians of our truth. We speak carefully, editing ourselves in real time. We offer pieces of what we feel rather than the whole of it. We trade authenticity for safety, often without realizing that something essential is being traded away. This habit, formed slowly and often unconsciously, becomes a way of living. We become practiced in silence. We convince ourselves that we are being mature, reasonable, strategic. We tell ourselves that emotional restraint is a kind of strength, that voicing our fears or longings or disappointments will make us burdensome, dramatic, too much. We believe that the people around us will not understand, or worse, will not care. And so we keep things inside. We carry unspoken worries like smooth stones in our pockets. We carry desires we have never dared to name. We carry anger that we have translated into politeness, sadness that we have disguised as strength, confusion that we have masked with competence. We carry so much of ourselves in silence that eventually, the silence becomes our identity. But silence has a cost. It reshapes us. It creates an internal distance that is difficult to close with time. We begin to inhabit two worlds simultaneously. The world of our external performance, where everything appears steadier and simpler than it really is, and the world of our private emotions, where complexity accumulates in layers. The more we live in the first world, the more alien the second one becomes. Not only to others, but to ourselves. We lose practice in naming our feelings. We forget how to articulate what hurts. We lose the language of our own inner life. And without that language, connection becomes almost impossible. We often imagine that others withdraw from us, but the truth is that we are the ones who step back first. When we do not say what we feel, we deprive others of the chance to meet us where we truly are. We turn intimacy into a guessing game they had no idea they were playing. We hope they will sense our discomfort, decode our tone, interpret the flicker in our eyes. We want them to understand without us having to risk the vulnerability of explaining. And when they fail to do so, which of course they will, we quietly resent them for it. We begin to believe that no one is capable of understanding us, when in fact we have given them almost nothing to understand. The cost of never saying what we really feel reveals itself gradually, like a slow leak in a foundation. At first, it is almost invisible. A slight disconnection here, a faint disappointment there. We convince ourselves it is nothing. Life is busy, relationships are imperfect, emotions are messy. We tell ourselves that the discomfort will pass. But the leak continues. The internal distance grows. We feel increasingly isolated, even among people who care about us. We start to interpret their affection as insufficient, their attention as misdirected, their concern as shallow. We assume they simply do not see us, and yet we have carefully arranged things so that they cannot. Not saying what we feel becomes a habit that shapes the architecture of our relationships. We choose partners who are comfortable with our silence, friends who expect little emotional transparency from us, environments where depth is optional. These choices make our lives more manageable, more predictable, but also more anesthetized. We crave connection, but choose arrangements that do not require authenticity. We hope to be understood, but refuse to reveal ourselves. The contradiction quietly consumes us. Of course, we did not invent this silence on our own. Most of us learned it from necessity. Some of us grew up in homes where emotional honesty was punished, mocked, or ignored. Some of us were raised by people who were overwhelmed by their own feelings and could not bear to hear ours. Some of us lived through moments of vulnerability that ended in humiliation or rejection. We carry these early lessons into adulthood. We learn to distrust the usefulness of our emotions. We learn that speaking openly leads to pain. And even when the world around us changes, those old childhood habits remain lodged in place like old roots. The tragedy is that we often misunderstand the purpose of emotional expression. We think its goal is agreement, validation, correction, or immediate resolution. But in truth, the purpose of speaking honestly is often far simpler: to exist fully in the presence of another person, to acknowledge our inner life without shrinking from it, to let someone witness our humanity without pretense. Communication is not a transaction, it is a form of being. When we deny ourselves that form of being, our emotional reality becomes privatized. Everything significant remains locked inside. We may appear calm, responsible, admirable, capable, the kind of person who doesn't get upset, who handles things well, who never complains. But this stability is purchased at the cost of depth. People mistake our silence for strength, our composure for contentment, our self-sufficiency for lack of need. Meanwhile, internally, we long for someone to ask the right question, to read between the lines, to insist that we open up. But we have built a wall so smooth and solid that no one realizes a door is even supposed to exist. There comes a moment, sometimes in a relationship, sometimes in a friendship, sometimes in the quiet hour of an evening, when the cost of silence suddenly reveals itself with startling clarity. A partner says something innocent, and we realize we have been lonely beside them for years. A friend offers help, and we cannot receive it because we have never told them what we actually needed. A colleague expresses concern, and we find ourselves unable to articulate what is wrong, not because we don't know, but because we have forgotten how to speak our own inner truth. The emotional distance becomes undeniable. We feel like a stranger inside our own life, and the silence that once felt protective now feels suffocating.
It is tempting in these moments to blame others for not understanding us. But understanding cannot happen without revelation. If we want others to know us, we must allow ourselves to be known. We must take the risk, the slow, deliberate risk of letting the hidden parts of us come to light. This is not an instruction to become raw or unfiltered or emotionally unrestrained. It is an invitation to make small, honest gestures, to name a feeling before it calcifies, to express a fear while it is still manageable, to admit uncertainty without shame, to describe a longing without expecting immediate fulfillment. These small acts of honesty are not dramatic. They are not cinematic breakthroughs. They are more like quiet recalibrations of the soul. Each one shifts the relationship slightly toward truth. Each one disrupts the architecture of silence we have built around ourselves. Each one lets in a little more air. There will, of course, be moments when honesty creates friction, when saying what we feel disrupts the fragile peace of an interaction, when it challenges the expectations others have of us, when it threatens the emotional habits of those who prefer our silence. But friction is not failure. It is simply evidence that something real has entered the room. Authenticity is not always comfortable, but comfort is not the point of intimacy. Presence is, and presence cannot exist inside silence. The cost of never saying what we really feel can also be measured in the way we relate to ourselves. When we silence our emotions repeatedly, we begin to believe they have no place, not just in our relationships, but in the world. We internalize the idea that our needs are excessive, our desires unreasonable, our wounds insignificant. We lose empathy for ourselves. We begin to treat our own feelings as disruptions rather than signals. We minimize our suffering until it becomes invisible even to us. And because we do not permit ourselves to fully feel what we feel, we cannot fully heal what hurts. In this way, silence becomes a kind of self-abandonment. we leave large portions of our emotional life unattended. We pretend not to care about things that matter deeply to us. We pretend to be unaffected by disappointments that wound us. We pretend to be strong when we are simply numb. Over time, numbness becomes unbearable. We crave aliveness, but do not know how to access it anymore. We want to feel, but every attempt at honesty feels threatening. We become trapped between the longing for connection and the fear of being seen. Yet, paradoxically, the way back is often much simpler than we imagine. It begins with a single sentence spoken honestly, something small, something true. I felt hurt by that. I'm not sure what I need yet. I'm afraid this will change things. I wish I could say this differently. This matters to me more than I'm comfortable admitting. These sentences do not demand resolution. They do not require others to fix anything. They simply mark the moment where silence ends and presence begins. When we begin to practice honesty, even tentatively, the world around us subtly rearranges itself. Some relationships do indeed falter under the weight of truth, but these are relationships that survived only because we pretended. Letting them go is not a failure. It is an act of alignment. Other relationships deepen in ways we never thought possible. People we feared disappointing show unexpected tenderness. People we assumed wouldn't care reveal reservoirs of empathy. People who seemed distant become warmer, more attentive, more real. Honesty acts like a tuning fork. It resonates at a frequency that calls forth authenticity from those around us. It selects for the relationships that can endure truth. It makes life both scarier and more meaningful. And it introduces the possibility, startling and fragile at first, that we might live without the constant background noise of loneliness. Because loneliness, the kind that follows us even in crowded rooms, is not caused by the absence of people. It is caused by the absence of ourselves. When we do not say what we really feel, we disappear from our own lives. We become actors delivering lines rather than humans revealing truths. And no amount of companionship can touch the emptiness created by self-erasure. To speak honestly is not to demand anything from anyone. It is to reinstate ourselves in the narrative of our own existence. It is to show up, to inhabit our emotional skin fully, to risk being misunderstood so that we can finally be known. The cost of never saying what we feel is immense, but the cost of beginning to speak is far smaller than we fear. It is awkward, yes. It is vulnerable, yes. But it is also deeply humanizing. And each time we choose honesty, we reclaim a small piece of ourselves, pieces we have long pretended we did not need. Over time, these reclaimed pieces form something coherent, something steady, something quietly radiant. They form a self that is present rather than hidden, connected rather than isolated, alive rather than numb. And in that aliveness, intimacy becomes possible, not because others have changed, but because we have finally allowed ourselves to be seen. Not saying what we feel may have protected us once, but it is no way to live a life. Eventually, silence grows too heavy to carry. Eventually, the longing to exist fully becomes stronger than the fear of being exposed. Eventually, we realize that loneliness can no longer be negotiated with politeness or defended against with quietness. We speak not because it is easy or comfortable or guaranteed to be received perfectly. We speak because the alternative is a slow disappearance. We speak because the truth, however fragile, asks to be lived. And we speak because somewhere inside us, beneath the layers of restraint and caution and inherited fear, there is a self that still hopes someone might understand. But that hope cannot be met until we give it a voice.